600,000 prisoners only leave prison every year. And all we talk about is the recidivism rate, highlighting failures. Because it's a new time now. It's time to celebrate. Time to admire. Time to honor those who got out of prison and never look back. Doing something with themselves and their lives while giving back. This is the re-entry return. I am your host, Kardell Sims.
All right. That's right. We back with another episode of the Reentry Journey. I am your host, Kardell Sims. And today, our guest is, I want to bring this brother in. This brother reached out to me. We had a phone conversation and he shared his story and similar stories, similar journeys. And we just chopped it up for a little bit. And and I knew I wanted him on the podcast and he wanted to be on the podcast. And, this happened real quick. But I just like, before I introduce you and bring you to the floor and turn the floor over to you, I just want to go through your bio so that people know exactly who you are. After being certified as an adult at the age of 15 and incarcerated for nearly 15 years, you come out and you make this positive transformation. You took full advantage of the educational services while you was incarcerated, and you get out, you put a team together, and you start motivating and inspiring, and particularly for the youth. You started helping the youth would overcome some of the issues and stuff that they're struggling with that you're familiar with as well. So without no further ado, I'd like to welcome you to the Reentry Journey, Mr. Keenan. For some reason, every time I introduce somebody and I say the reentry instead of journey, always come out funny. I don't know what's up with that, but I'd like to welcome you to the Reentry Journey, Mr. Keenan Hudson. Welcome to the Reentry Journey. How you doing today, my brother?
Oh, I'm doing well, Mr. Kardell Sims. I really appreciate you having me here today.
Oh, man. I really want to say thank you, first off, for being a guest on the Reentry Journey. I'm willing to come on, share your story, your knowledge, your game to those who need it and to those who might be going through something, and also to the community that I bring, as well as introducing my community to you. And hearing your story and the work that you do. So once again, thank you for coming to the Reentry Journey. So tell me let the people know who you are and about you.
Oh, yes, indeed. Let me first start off in saying that my name is Keenan Hudson. I'm actually from the city of Philadelphia. And like most, kids that come up in the poverty, low income area in Philadelphia, we somewhat have troubled childhoods. I grew up, like I said, single mother home. I had ADHD, so I was always hyperactive, always in a lot of different things, that usually normal kids get into, but, I always had to be around my mother. My mother never went anywhere without me. Of course, my father was in there in the play at the beginning, but eventually this was around the crack pandemic, so he wound up getting sucked into the street life. And so he left when I was probably about like 4 years old. So throughout that time, I was actually considered just a black sheep of the family. I was always in, like I said, I got more whoopings than anybody. I was always getting kicked out of school, always getting my butt whooped, all the time. So eventually, I had a stepfather. He came to the play, but he wasn't like a big role model or anything. I had aunts, uncles, but again, they were never in my life completely, really showing me, the right way with things. Eventually, as I grew a little bit older, my mom was diagnosed with cancer at the age of, when I was 13, she was probably about, I think she was 40. She was battling cancer. At one point, I believe she had cancer before, but the doctors, they found it and got rid of it. But then later on in life, like I said, when I was about 13, they found out the cancer came back, and then it came back very rapidly, and it actually claimed her life. By this time, I was just entering high school, and I actually didn't know how sick she was. I thought it was just like a common cold. It was something that she was going to, come back
Right.
from.
Come back from.
And it was like wow. So my family members kept it away from me. That's one of the worst things you can really do, even though they try to say, hey, we're looking out for the safety of you. But that eventually, resulted in like trust issues, because here it was a week,
Right.
a week before Christmas, they tell me, hey, your mother may not be making it, because by this time she was homebound to the bed. Me and my siblings, which I have a brother, sister, we didn't know what was going on. My brother probably understood a little bit more than me because he was older than me, but we didn't know. But then when they shared that, she'll be passing away soon. Now here it is, it's around Christmas time, the worst Christmas ever.
Right.
She wound up passing actually December 28th, which is the season, that we're doing this podcast now, which is about a week from now. But
About a week,
nonetheless, that's when things took a spiral. When she passed away, my aunt took custody of me and my brother. Then my sister, she went somewhere else. So, it was a saying that, that my mom wasn't never worried or concerned about my brother or my sister. She was never concerned about them. She was always concerned about me, because I was the black sheep. She knew how my family was towards me, how I was mistreated in different ways. But nonetheless, about a year, almost about a year and a month after she passed away, throughout that year and that month, I was, getting high, smoking weed. I was running the streets a little bit. And by this time, I'm like 14, going on 15. So I was always constantly warned by my family, hey, you need to stay out the street, stop doing this, stop doing that, go to school. I was playing football for George Washington High School. But I was, like I said, I was just losing my mind a little bit. So then,
before you go on, during this time, was football the kind of like the basis reason of why you was going to school?
Well, I can say yes, because actually the school that I played football for, which was George Washington High School, it was actually, truth be told, I actually got in that school due to a cousin of mine. A cousin of mine got me into school because no other school would accept me. So even throughout that time, I was still acting up in school.
Right.
I was trying to, do the right, but I was still acting up, due to peer pressures and things of that nature.
Okay.
But it wasn't like the real motive, because even during school, I wound up almost getting kicked out. When I was in high school, I wound up going to night school and then switching back to regular school within that process, because I dropped out when I was in the 10th grade, even though I started school early. Right. So that led to the peer pressures of, individuals.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So, did you have any, like your friends, did you have some that had already dropped out, or was all your friends in school as well?
So a lot of my school friends were in school, but a lot of them, like you said, some of them went to other schools, but then, there's some of them they didn't have they had rough childhoods, but some of them had their moms and dads, you know what I'm saying? And some of them, didn't, you know what I mean? Some of us had it worse than others, but the same ones that I was going to school with, we were, smoking weed, doing some of the same things.
Right. Because the reason why I asked that, because this is around the same age that I started. Maybe I was probably like 12 or 13 too, and I started smoking weed and drinking and hanging out and getting gang activity. And by the time I got in high school, right before my 10th grade, a lot of my peers and my friends that I was hanging with started to drop out of school. Around that age, yeah.
Yeah, and that's true. And I think, it seemed like when I got around to the time where I almost dropped out, that's when it happened.
Okay.
And what I meant by when it happened is when I got into some major, major trouble. The major, major trouble consisted of me and some so-called friends. Now, this is where the friends of the neighborhood, where you consider them friends, we wanted to get together and we wanted to rob somebody. And when we robbed that person that night, that person was shot in the head. He was shot and killed.
Oh wow.
Here it was. I was 15. The other accomplices, it was 5 of us. The other
Okay.
accomplices was about 16, 17. We was all juveniles. And I actually mentioned in my book. That's why I will mention the book later on that I was able to publish. So that happened. Now here it is. There's a murder. A murder robbery at hand. So now everybody. I'm certified as an adult. At the age of 15 years old, going to the jails before I went upstate to the prisons. So
I know I got to keep cutting you off because me and you have a connection. And at 15 years old, that I don't really, a lot of people don't hear me talk about, but people know my story. They know about the story. But you said right before you, because I can relate to this, you said right before you was about to drop out, the incident happened. Right. I was on the same path. I was about to drop out, and I was on the verge of dropping out. Only thing that kept me playing school was because I like to play basketball. So that was really the only reason why I was really going to school. And at 15 years old, I caught an attempted murder case. Me and a buddy of mine, we beat somebody to death, almost to death, with a crowbar and a 2x4. And I was in juvenile detention center. And because I could play basketball, a lot of coaches would come and speak on my behalf. And I was placed on probation with a stipulation that I had to graduate high school, or they would turn around and charge me as an adult.
Wow.
Yeah. They would turn around and charge me as an adult. So when I asked the question, because I was in similar situations at the same age, and I was probably on the verge of dropping out of school because I think if that incident would have happened where it was like I ended up getting put in foster homes, went to one foster home that didn't work. They put me in a foster home that's right in the neighborhood. And so that didn't work out. They put me in another foster home and it worked out and I graduated. But I understand being 15, facing seriousness, because at one point in time, the guy was on life support. So I'm really kind of sitting around, sitting, waiting what's going on. And so there's similar things that's why I asked some questions like, was you on the verge of dropping out? Because that was me. It was the same for me. Like I was on almost everybody that was around me had dropped out. So I was on the verge of dropping out. And then this incident happened.
Yeah. And that's powerful. Like you said, to have, that similar age and facing, like you say, the similar situation is very profound, because when we look at America today, a lot of kids that's going through what they're going through, like you said, they're dropping out left to right. A lot of uneducated kids and falling into the system, at that early age. And as I mentioned, like even me being on the urge of dropping out, that's when it happened. So here it is, certified as an adult. Here it is. We don't, let alone do we have education, as far as reading, writing, and arithmetic. But the average person in the world doesn't even know about the law. They don't know about litigation. They don't know the different, the difference between, the legislative, the judicial and executive branches. Like, so long story short, I don't mean to get into that, but here it is. My life was at the mercies of strangers.
Right.
Thank God by that time, my family actually was able to afford me an attorney at that time, a private counsel. But besides that, other, juveniles that in my situation, a lot of them have to rely on a public defender, which is, in other words, a PD. So here it is, your life are at the mercies of strangers that are probably cutting deals with the DA, whether you get time or not, they're getting a cut or, because they're homie, whatever the case may be. But here it is, we don't know what's going on. So we're still just acting the fool, running wild, in the prison system. We running wild in the county jails.
Right. And was that the first time that you have been in a county jail?
Yeah, that was the very first time.
And what was that experience like?
Wow, it's deep because, and I could backpedal just a little bit, right? But before I tell you experience, my mother actually was a correctional officer before she passed away,
Oh wow.
right? She was a correctional officer. So she used to always try to, tell me stories or say things like, look, you don't want to go down this route. You don't want to do this, do that, because she'd tell me little stories, but I never paid it no mind. It's sort of that thing. If you don't go through the experience, like you could tell somebody something all day. If you got a bunch of theory knowledge, but you don't have experience, you'll find out the hard way once you start learning that this thing is for real.
Right.
So the first time, me going in, it was like wow, at first, the first day is more so like that. You hear a lot of people, plus you're around a bunch of juveniles, so it's real loud in there. It's people already a little dug in, just waiting. So people are waiting to get sentenced or even go home. So you waiting to either go upstate. People don't know, people, other juveniles in there, 13, 14, charged with homicide because they shot somebody, killed somebody, whatever the case may be. And here it is, you in the mix of all this, So I never was like afraid or scared, like, oh no, I don't know what's going to happen to me. But it was always that, that thought in your mind, like, wow, what can happen in here?
Right.
You know what I mean? And that was a serious point. Like you said, it was a serious point, especially when you see people getting jumped. I got in fights through the things, that went on. Like I said, a lot of it's mentioned in my book that I've written about. But throughout it all, of course, I knew I was facing, some big time. Of course, if somebody gets shot in the head, now mind you, I wasn't the actual shooter. An accomplice that I was with, my co-defendant, was the actual shooter that pulled the trigger. But being as though I played a part in planning it out and bear hugging the guy when the guy came up, it was all like a play. Like, okay, you're a main suspect, and the shooter's a main suspect.
Right.
So it all played a big part. Like, wow, like, we didn't know how serious it was. And I remember, like 15 years old, I was writing a judge. Actually, he's actually an inserter of my book that I had wrote. And I said, oh, I don't want to grow up in prison. I'm sorry I made a mistake, this and the third. But he even wrote back, and he said, look, due to the nature of this crime, you can't just let somebody go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's like, nah.
Yeah, you can't. And it's not that he was in a nasty way saying it, but it was like, yo, due to the nature, this is a serious crime. So that right there showed me how when you're a juvenile, you never pretty much think through the consequences of your actions, especially something severe like that. When you're taking or enforcing bodily harm upon a person or inflicting wound, to the head, that's capital punishment. So they thought about giving us the death penalty, but here it was, they had passed the law that they can't sentence juveniles to death anymore.
Right.
But however, they could seek out life without parole.
Mm.
So, but thank God, like I said, throughout different things that happened throughout the case, like I said, my book is going to be here for people to check it out, to really get the grasp of everything that happened, because I have everything in there. So eventually what happened was I wound up actually getting a sentence for 12 and a half to 25 years. 12 and a half to 25 years.
12 and a half to 25.
To 25 years. So It was no less than 12 and a half and no more than 25.
Okay.
So here it was. So I know different states, they vary with the time and setting the things that they said. So, or the way they sentence you. So here it was, going upstate. I had just come from a wild county where there's a bunch of juveniles running around acting stupid, acting crazy, So here it is. You're thrown because you're certified. So they throw you in with a bunch of grown men now. So I went upstate.
Whole another different environment.
Whole number different environment, because now I'm still a kid. I'm still a kid here. You see what I'm saying? I'm still like, and of course, adults, they probably done lived life a little bit outside, and some people grew up in there, this, that, and third. But
the prison that you went into, it was maximum security.
The first prison, so I had to go through a couple of them.
Okay.
So the first one was Graterford. So Graterford was more so like I was passing through.
Right,
so
like a diagnostic center.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, they passing through. You know how they classify you and all that. It's like a passing through. So then they send you to the next prison, which is Camp Hill. Camp Hill is a classification jail as well. They analyze you. They do different things. They try to test your reading level. They test your education. So they do the whole domains of life. They do evaluation check to see who you are.
Yeah.
See if you're going to lie. So all that stuff that they ask you, of course, they ask you later on down the line. But that's another story. We'll speak more about that, about the reentry and all that strategies. So what happened was, so I wound up getting to the certain prisons that I was at. And the first one that I was at was actually fairly like medium security, wasn't too wild or nothing, but things still went down. Like, don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
Still prison. Eventually, I wound up transferring to, Virginia. But then let me tell you this. So when my act straightened up from the reason why my act straightened up from when I was down the county, because I matured when I went into the top, because it was. I'm gonna give you a little story. What happened was, one day when I went down CJC, which is the county, we went to the courthouse. Was going to court. So us juveniles used to so they had us in a certain cell, but we could see all the adult inmates that were upstate and probably serving time already.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was, we was on the gate taunting the old heads. We was taunting them. Some of the old heads was coming back down on the pills and stuff like that, trying to fight their case. So we taunted them, you old head, you's a sucker, you ain't gonna do nothing. So we behind the gate doing this. So the old heads got on the door, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I want to get him. Tell him, bring him over here. I'm gonna whoop his behind. He was going off, but he was dead serious.
Right.
So then the sheriff guy came over and said, "Yo," he said, "Yo, young kids, y'all gotta chill, man." He said, "These guys, right, man." He said, "That boy right there that's on that gate that want you." He pointed to me. He said, "The boy that wants you." He said, "That boy." He said that boy. He can't. He got 3 bodies. Came down here on another one, and he's a faggot. Excuse me. And I'm just telling you how the sheriff
said you. Right.
This is no offense to anybody out there. Not against, any like what's going on, whatever situation is. I'm telling you how the sheriff said it to me.
Right.
So I was like, so we was salty, like,
and people, before we go any further, people got to understand, we're not talking about going inside the prison and stuff today. We're talking about back in the day when they talk to you any old kind of way and talk to you harsh. And when I say they, I'm talking about staff.
Yeah, they will come at your neck, push your card, and try to push you there. And the crazy thing is, so this is where I learned a crucial lesson, is that so after we was talking like, it ain't gonna do nothing, yeah. So about like 20 minutes went by, everything quiet down. 20 minutes went by. So then the sheriff came back to the cell, and he said, Hudson, court. Like, I thought I was going, to the court. All right, yeah, cool. We'll see what's going on. I got to see my turn. I thought I had to see my turn or something. So next thing you know, he took me over to the cell where the old heads was at.
Mm-hmm.
He unlocked the cell and was trying to push me in. I said, "Oh no, please, no, don't put me, no. Everybody started cracking up. They started clowning me down there. And the old head was like, "Yeah, what's up? What's all that?" But the old head sheriff pulled me out. He said, "That's the reason why I tell you, you got to learn your lesson. You got to mind your business. You stay in your place. You never mess with somebody because you never know what they're going through."
Right.
So here it is. Everybody had every reason to clown me down there. But here it was. I was acting like I was a gangster on the door. Yeah.
You was a door warrior.
Yeah, you ain't going to do nothing. And let's say then it came, it was going to knock you out. You was scared. And it taught me a valuable lesson for when I prepared to go upstate. I said, you mind your business. You mind your business. You stay out of other people's business and you do your time. So I had to go up there with a real mind. It's like, nah, I'm chilling. I ain't staying out of people's business. I ain't trying to run into, because them very same cats. So you don't know that them very same cats you can run into when you go upstate.
Right.
You thought they was just behind the door. That's why even if you are a prison guard or somebody that's just walking through a prison, be careful what you say to people because people remember your face.
Oh, yeah.
Be careful how you deal with them because they will remember your name.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's different. So going up there, it was like I straightened up, and then I wound up getting transferred with an out-of-state transfer going down to Virginia. And that was like, but down there, nothing really changed. My mind. Now, I always tried to educate myself and getting into, a lot of education.
Yeah, because I was going to say, when I was doing my research and while you was incarcerated, I seen you was in a lot of programs and was educating yourself in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and that's when, like you said, and that's when I got my act straight. Even though I was still on the block, I was running stores, playing poker, doing different things. I was playing a lot of ball because I was a ball player.
Oh, you was a hooper?
Yeah. I actually came.
How many
coming out? Yeah, I used to be.
How many championships you got on the inside?
Oh, so actually, I got about 3. Well, as far as basketball, I got about 3. I got some pictures. Even some of the pictures.
Hey, I know you was on the. Was you on the softball? You was out there.
I played softball. I played softball, but I ain't really like softball.
Right.
I ain't really like it all like that, man. I ain't gonna lie. But basketball, yeah. I don't got no championships in football. Even though I played, I was still a player. I think I got one. I did have one in baseball though, but I wasn't no star as if I was in basketball or something.
All right, okay. But, Let me find out you got your name segmented in the Department of Corrections because I was everywhere I went. I was I won a championship. Like when I should transfer to prison, the people from the older prisons that knew me and they might have transferred, and they know when you coming on.
They know.
Hey, like, big youngsters coming down here. You know what I'm saying? So they be waiting on me. Come on, put your stuff up. Come on to the gym.
Right to the gym.
Yeah. That's
so we got you.
That's how I survived in prison. My first year in prison, that's how I survived. I didn't come from nothing. My people didn't have no money and nothing like that. So when I was in prison, I ain't had nobody sending me nothing far away from home. So first year of me surviving was hustling people on the basketball court. I go out there and in front of the house and just shoot all crazy. And somebody gonna say something. They be like, man, I bet I can beat you. And then they go, we go one-on-one in the gym. That's how I hustled. Probably by the first 6 to 8 months, till people realized that I was the coldest basketball player on the court.
He was the GOAT.
Yeah,
man, that's how you had to do
most definitely, yeah. So then when I went in the feds, I was older in the feds. When I went to the feds, I was older, so I really wasn't into basketball. But people in the car taught me to play on the team. Oh, hey, come on and play on the team. Oh, hey. And we went to the championship. We didn't have no squad. We went to the championship. We beat the top team in the semifinal. But it was just the final game. We played the boys. They had their point guards from Philly. They had a couple shooters from Chicago. They had a big 6'8" alley-oop dunking dude from Atlanta. They was young, man. We had people on my team that was older than me, and here I was almost 40. Yeah, but we was out there on them. We was out there. We gave them a good run for their money for the first half and the first half and about the first few minutes of the second half. But I love playing basketball. And on the inside, I built a lot of brotherhoods. My first big, because I've been to prison 4 times. So my first prison big, that was one of my main things was basketball. So everywhere I went, I won a championship. That's why I asked you how many championships you had.
I got 3. I got 1. My first joint, but the crazy thing is I had to get my game up. See, I played. See, it's a difference between playing with juveniles, where you really still soft. Yeah. So then when I started playing with the adults, young boy, you soft. You gotta get your weight up.
Yeah.
Young boy, you soft. Get your weight up. Go on the other court. They kept telling me, go on the other court. Go on the other court. But then once I started getting stronger, I got in the weight pile, started training, they started respecting my game. Now when you walk into the yard, you ain't even gotta run out there. They like, we got you. Don't even worry about it. We got you.
Yeah, ain't no running to the gym. You can go ahead and just take your time. You can stop and have 4 or 5 conversations on the way to the gym. By the time you get in there, we already got you.
Yeah, we got you already. But you can't even warm up. All right. But that's how it is.
That's how I go.
I got the championship pictures in there. We're playing ball and all that, man.
Oh, okay.
But and like you said, that was a way of, like you said, making money. We used to gamble a lot, playing ball, because you had a lot of people forget prison, even though you have convicted, criminals in there, you have some people are innocent, but then you also have a lot of professionals, from different arenas of life.
Yeah,
whether it be lawyers, DAs, ex-people that have been in the NBA, NFL. These people are in it. So you got college ball players in there that, you look at them like that, they can really go to the league.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So long story short, so like I said, I get down to Virginia, it's a lot going on down there. People getting stabbed up, left and right, things going down. But like mind you, I'm still walking with a cool mind, even though I'm just chilling. I'm seeing a lot of these things happen. So you're seeing bloodsheds and you're seeing a lot of different things. So long story short, I wound up, like I said, I was doing my education. I took trades. You might even see some of the trades here behind me. But that a lot of people say, oh, are they college degrees? No, that's not a college degree. But these are some trades that I accomplished that I'm very proud of.
Exactly.
That even made a way for me out here. You see what I'm saying? So long story short,
regardless of where you get them certificates mean a lot to us, and that we don't put in the work. It's crazy you say that. What made me think about it because me and my wife is having a conversation. She's into food, and I was just asking her, what would be her next ultimate goal, and she was talking about how we was watching the little show where the bar guy, he goes in there and makes people. He's a bar expert. I can't think his name. He go in there yelling at them, but he gets their bar together. And she was talking about how she would want to some kind of do some things like that in the lodging and in restaurants. And I'm like, I'm she was like, she got to go to this school. And I'm like, what's the name of the school? And she said, oh, it's a big one out. It's the biggest one out in Las Vegas. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, I took this America Institute in Hotel Lodging and Service class in prison, and they told me this was the biggest. So I went to looking up my info, like, no. So I went online and looked up, what the people that I took the class from in prison. They was top of the list. I said, I just want to make sure I wasn't faking, but don't try to dismiss like I ain't go to the top notch inside just because I was in prison.
And the crazy thing is when we do take these classes, like one of my greatest professors that was in there was Dr. Michael McGall. He was so sharp. They forget that these professors coming in there teaching us. Not saying every teacher is going to be like that, but you got some professionals in there that be teaching us. He took me Money Smart. He took me business computing, business education. So he taught me all the things that I needed out here in this world.
Exactly. Them classes, I don't know if people understand, like them classes be for real inside the prison. These ain't no faking class like that. The hotel lodging class like I took that for like a year and a half, and I had to end up building out a whole bar, club, restaurant thing. Blueprint for it. How it's gonna run. Then they had to turn around and do. We had to put people on the team. It was like 4 or 5 of us. Once we did the blueprint of the place, then we had to do a mock. Like if you came in there to eat, like we had to serve. We had the person at the door. Wow. Like this was the real deal.
It was the real deal.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I took Serve Safe. You see
what I got there? Serve Safe, Ultra. I got this joint here. I got the Nocti. That's my Nocti test for the culinary arts.
See what I'm saying?
Restaurant.
Exactly.
That was it. Man.
Like
that stuff, and see, you learn these skills and they stay with you. See, a lot of people go in and they put education to the side. Well, granted, a lot of people don't even have their GEDs. But when they do get their GED, some people, I don't want to do nothing else. But then when they see the parole board or something, they'll tell them, hey, look, you getting a hit because you didn't show any type of improvement or any type of, stride for success.
Right.
So here it is, all these programs are available that they're at least attempting to offer you. Because remember, it always starts with the person. Mm-hmm. It starts with the person. It starts with the mental. It's going to start inside. A lot of people say, I'll do it when I go home. Well, you go home, you ain't going to have no time to do nothing.
No, you can't do that when you go home. And that's why That's why I started my reentry academy on them principles. On the inside, reentry academy, because reentry starts on the inside of prison and on the inside of cell. Like you can't, ain't no waiting until you get home.
Ain't no waiting because you get home, you got to pay bills. You got to do these things. You can't run the mommy house, but a lot of people do. A lot of people run the mommy and daddy house, try to sleep on the couch, sleep in the basement, got a bunch of kids, don't want to take care of them and all this. But here it is. You could have planned this stuff out before you came home. You could have worked out payment plans in your head before you came home. You know, even if you had to go to that 9-to-5 job of McDonald's working from the bottom, we're paying you $7.25. Eventually, doors are going to open. But see what it is, people try to hurry up and run and keep up with the Joneses. People that have been living out here, you trying to keep up with them. Or you trying to please a girl that really don't even like you. Right. So it's a lot of ways, you know, and like I said, I know we jumped, you know, to the reentry part, but but like you said, but even backpedaling to with the education, I knew that eventually once I got out of prison, education was going to play a big role. Like that's why I had to learn as much as possible. I even taught myself to learn piano while I was in prison. A lot of people think I was playing since I was a baby, but no, that's not the case. I actually took and read about 1,000 books. And I actually listened to a lot of music, listened to a lot of the CD players with my headphones on, and I was able to learn how to read it, write it, and teach it just by reading books. I never went to school for music a day in my life.
Right.
And then not only that, now I could play by ear. So if I hear the song, I could play it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Well, all this came from taking the time out and reconsidering my mind inside. But that wasn't the only thing that transformed my life, you know, because there was a time when I was down there and I was like depressed and stuff like that. And it was actually a prison guard that worked down there. This was when I was in Virginia. And she poured into me. She was a God-fearing woman, you know, and I don't mean to bring like a platform of spirituality on here, but it played a big part in me and with my transitioning.
Right.
And she poured into me for like 2 years straight. She prayed over me. They brought her church in when we was about to come back to Pennsylvania, and they prayed over me. And like I say, my life was like changed, like drastically. And I can't go in depth, but I'm just keeping simple as possible. But here it was. They prayed over me. They prayed over me the gift of music. I started learning all styles of music. Like I said, once I came back to Pennsylvania, I was able to buy my keyboard. I started learning that. I think I took another college class or something. But then eventually the warden and stuff had asked me to start a musical program for special need inmates. Here it was. Okay. They were shutting down all the state hospitals in Pennsylvania. And what happened was they started putting a lot of the mental patients into prisons. They had like this block. So here it was. They asked me to form I actually got my actual booklet in which I created, handwritten, created, made copies of, and gave to each individual that were on the mental health units. I was teaching them. They had that much faith in me. They said I was teaching them how to read music and things of that nature. Now, mind you, you're around some people, a lot of people that were, they were taking a lot of different medications. They were coming out smearing feces on themselves. Right. So I was around a bunch of stuff, but they confided in me saying, listen, we're going to give you, they gave me about like 40 different keyboards and said, look, we're going to keep them stored here. We just want you to go over there and have a musical little day with them, certain times, certain days of the week. And then we're going to want you to have a concert with them like every quarter.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? So here it was. And this is just on the musical journey. Now, like I said, things just started happening. Doors was opening in there. Eventually, like I said, my time was coming up where I had to see the parole board. So by this time, like I said, I went to Albion. There was still a bunch of mess going on up there, like, a bunch of stabbings. I seen a lot. It was a lot of stuff. But again, I kept a mellow head. I knew a lot of the gang leaders and stuff like that. Like I used to walk the track with a lot of them, but they knew I was neutral. I had nothing to do with. Plus, I was a choir director. Plus, I used to teach the Spanish choir. I was, I was doing a lot of different positive things. So a lot of people looked at me as influence.
Okay.
So everybody looked like, oh, wow, this boy, he does a lot of stuff. So they knew if I was walking with a gang leader or something like that, it was nothing that was I had nothing to do with, with stabbing somebody up or nothing like that. So long story short, came time for me to see parole board and everything. So they said, yo, you got to have, like what was it, 8? You got to have a majority out of 8 vote or something like that. Okay. So, during that time, when you're about to come home, they give you like a year, like a pre-release, like a pre-parole type year, preparing your reentry plan. So here it was, I prepared reentry plan. I actually got I got like the booklet in which I wrote out whole reentry plan. If I go home, who's my support system? Who's going to be family? Who you're going to surround yourself with? Blase, what job you going to get? Where are your resources? Just in case all things fail, where you going to go? So I had all these things mapped down to a T. But that's not it. You got to go into that interview and you got to really sell yourself and let them know, hey, I am a reformed individual. I am a reformed person that's going to come to society and make a difference.
Exactly.
So everything that I wrote, now things are subject to change because here it was, we were in an environment where things were predictable. But when you come home, things are so unpredictable that a lot of times you got to remember, like you could drive down the street and get a flat tire. You late for work. See, in there, they may call chow time. You go to the mess hall, you know what time you're going to go, where line you're going to go and things of that nature. Now it's a fight break out where they got to halt the movement. But I will say, but again, so going back, making the parole, like I said, thank God I've been home 6 years now. I came home back in 2016. Mm-hmm. So what happened was making that parole was usually was unheard of, especially with the nature of my crime. So the thing is, because usually people get hits, and what hits are meaning that you're not going to get out on your minimum, but they'll give you additional time to serve. So here it was. I had a lady named Miss Gray, Miss LeBenny. I forgot to get the other names, but they had people on screens. But they wanted to make sure, are you? Because mind you, these parole board members, they're DAs, ex-lawyers, they're judges. They're these type of people. They're not just regular people just coming off the street. So they're going to cross-examine you, see if you're going to lie. If you're trying to manipulate, which is understandable. I understand because there's a lot of people that do. So long story short, they told me right then and there, they was like, hey, you had my vote. They both gave me their votes. And then they said, we got to send it to central office. Next thing you know, a month later, that green sheet came and said, hey, you're a free man. I said, wow. You know what I'm saying? But now this was the ultimate test because now that I was going to be a free man, the thing was, this is a key point, and I want a lot of people to take this nugget with them, right? I always say this. I went into prison at 15. I was 15 here, right? So everything went on pause. My whole life went on pause on the outside. When the doors opened up for me to return to society, right? I grew up in prison, right? I grew up in there. I grew up in the Delt.
Right.
But when the doors opened, the only thing I remembered was 15. The only thing I remember was 15 returning back to society. So here it is. Even though I had everything written in my parole plan, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that, But at the same time, I had to remember, I grew up. So now transition, that's why when you're transitioning, it's a good key point to have a good support system. A good support system is not just about having $1,000 in your pocket. A good support system is not just about having a place to stay. A good support system is not just having a good job. If you have somebody that's going to teach you step by step, understanding, the different levels and the formalities out here in life, you're going to fail. The recidivism rate is going to increase because you're going to go back.
Exactly.
So it's a big difference. So I had to have that, mentor, somebody to show, all right, listen, this is how credit works. This is how you leverage it. This is why your credit takes you places where this is how your credit takes you places where your money can't. So a lot of people don't understand that those type of simple things, even paying a bill, putting a bill in your name, that has to be taught.
So how did you go about finding mentors? So somebody getting out of prison today and they trying to figure out how they're going to find a mentor. Okay, how did you go about finding a mentor?
Okay, so by the grace of God, so before I was released, this is probably about a year or two before I was released, I actually reached out to a couple people. And it was an old church that used to be actually down the street from where I was raised. And I reached out to a pastor that was there. Now, the pastor actually remembered who I was, but it took him time because he seen that I lost a lot of weight, and then he didn't know, he couldn't recognize it. But he was like, "Oh yeah, you're kid. Yeah, I remember who you are now." And he actually agreed. Said, "Listen, I'm going to be, I'm going to help you with your transition." So he agreed to that. He helped me with the transitioning. Here it was. There was other people, like elder people that was in that church that I had knew. See, they remember because I used to go to like the little youth group sometime when I was
Oh, okay.
So right. You know what I'm saying? I didn't grow up in the church or anything. Like I'm not a pastor or anything. People may think that, but no. Or because I could play the piano in church. No, it's just a gift. But at the same time, I do know who my Lord is. But I don't. So what happened was going through that, I confided saying, okay, this is going to be my mentor. This is going to be somebody that's going to show me. He's a businessman, blase. Then somebody else was in the church that I remembered that was there, elder lady, which is my godmother. And I said, okay. I said, I'm going to trust that they're going to do right by me, because everybody that may say they're going to be there for you may not have your best interest at heart.
Exactly.
So they had to, like I say, walk me through. I had to learn how to drive a car. I had to learn how to go down and get my license. I had to learn that a Bluetooth, you didn't have to go to the dentist to get a Bluetooth. You know what I'm saying? Because life done changed so much. When I was,
exactly.
I still had the Nextels and the little flip phone.
They had when you went in, they had the Nokia joints.
Nokias and Sprint PCS. Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So then come out seeing these tablets and iPhones, and I see people talking to the phone, and I'm thinking they was talking to themselves. I'm like, Dad, what's going on here?
Right.
But it took me time to grow. It took me time to establish businesses, because I always say this all the time. This is another nugget. That rock bottom is going to teach you lessons that the mountaintop won't. So if you don't know what it is to be at the bottom, if you don't know what it is to be at the bottom, you're not going to know how to appreciate the top. So if somebody come home and they're giving everything, you're not going to appreciate nothing. You're going to think that you're entitled to it every single time, which is not the case. So here it is. You have to, you learn, be patient. You have to learn to stay focused, even if you're making this minimum wage. Because there was times I had to make minimum wage and for a little while, but I stayed on the grind. I started developing. I said, okay, which other ways can I be able to, bring in revenue, bring in different streams? Started learning how to teach music to the kids. Started giving back to the community, going different places, playing piano for the churches, playing piano for different events, whether it be secular or whatever the case may be. So then here it was, I was growing little by little. I said, okay, now I can buy my little car. First car, 1999 Chevy Lumina. Right?
All right.
I was wearing suits in that car and everything.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with it.
I was like, listen here, I don't care. I appreciate what God has blessed me with.
Exactly.
He said, you're faithful over the little, I'll make you rule over much. So my thing is, so what I did was I stayed focused. Next thing you know, things started doubling, tripling. I started working different places, became supervisor here. Next thing you know, even though I was making $18,000 a year, then it shot up to about 25, then it shot up to about 50. Next thing, turned around $100,000 a year. So, and this was just off of earned income. You see what I'm saying? So then now I started understanding the method of the different streams, residual income. So then I started to understand, okay, real estate. Why not purchase, some properties, duplexes? Because I was always a saver. I never was a spender. And even to this day, a lot of people be like, hey, you wear the same jacket, yeah?
Right, straight up.
I got plenty of jackets that I could, don't get it twisted. I got plenty of jackets I could pick from, but my job is not to impress you. My job is to live my life throughout what my purpose is. You see what I'm saying? So Here it was, establishing business, establishing rental car business. Establishing different things, with real estate, buying property. Here it was, establishing my own musical business, going throughout different places, playing in different events. You see what I'm saying? So all of this capitalized, then here it is. Like I said, throughout my transition, I became an author. I was able to publish a book. So my book was actually written. It's called The Unspoken Truth and Life Story of Keenan Hudson. So right now it's actually on Amazon Kindle, but the actual physical book, because I just launched on December 1st, but we did an advanced reader campaign, which launched on December 1st. But the physical book, the actual physical, this book actually comes out January 16th. And like I said, you can find it, go to my website, KeenanHudson.com. And this actually touches on my life story. Like I said, I was brief on the interview right here, but it touches on my life story all the way up to transition. I mean, this thing has manuscripts, everything, how everything went down. It's like a must read for adults, children, for people, that believe that, that they want their family members to, really get a glimpse of how life would really be. Even though they're incarcerated, it's a must-read book. If they're in the actual criminal justice, serving, if they're working, if they're college students that's studying criminal law, this is a good book to read.
Right.
Like I'm telling you, like I say, you might see my mugshot on the front, but yeah, it even has affidavits and statements in there from how everything transpired. So reasonable cause of arrest. So I say that to say, and I don't want to get off the track, that if I could do it, anybody can do it. All things are possible if you believe. See, a lot of times people, I could have gave up hope a long time ago when I didn't have a car, when I had to walk to work in the rain, when I had to walk to work in the snow. I could have gave up plenty of times, but I didn't. I said, no, whatever I got to go through out here, it's going to be better than spending the day inside there.
Exactly.
Hands down.
Exactly.
Hands down, man.
Exactly.
You don't understand how good we have it, having freedom. There's some people that can't get out. There's some people that may be innocent, and there's some people that's guilty. But there is a saying that, it's better to let an innocent man go, to let a guilty man go than it is to incarcerate an innocent man.
Innocent.
And it's deep because, like I said, the system has its flaws, ups and downs. But I'm not here to try to, break down with the flaws. You have your people for that. But when one of my main objectives is, and I believe Mr. Kardell Sims, the reason why we connected so tightly is because we're on the focus of the people that's returned to society. It's very important that they had that transformation before they re-enter. Exactly. It's very important that it starts inside. It doesn't start when you get out here. It's going to be way too hard because you're going to have obligations and responsibilities. Exactly. But here it is. You got to have these strategies in order to fulfill those obligations and responsibilities of when you do return to society.
Exactly. So what's next for Mr. Hudson? What's next?
What's next? So the launch of this book was, like I said, was one stage. But now coming after that, now there's several books that I already have written. But the reason why I had to publish my biography first is because other people are not going to read the other books if they don't know who the author is. So they had to know who I was, what I've been through. When it said The Unspoken Truth, I gave you everything. I gave you all of me. Everything I went through in the prisons, everything. So the other books, so I'm planning, like I said, we're working on getting this re-entry, re-strategy planning. You know what I'm saying? It's probably, somewhat, I'm quite sure we got different ideas, different perspectives, but it's the re-entry planning of helping people and understand, it's going to be a handbook / workbook. So we're trying to figure out how I'm going to deliver to both, but long story short, but is to come through, and I actually agreed with what you were saying about the 100 correctional institutions. That's a powerful move right there. And I encourage you and anybody watching, the people that support and sponsor that type of stuff. That's very important that they invest in that because that's going to it's going to show a big decrease on the recidivism rate. You know what I'm saying? It's going to help.
The 100 correctional is going on the beat. I think people, even though it's this brand new and I'm just talking about it, I want them to understand that I'm not going there just to speak. We're going there. This is going to be a half day or full day workshop where we doing creating vision boards. We're doing financial literacy. We're talking about doing entrepreneurship workshop. We're doing resources workshop. And the more and more people we can get involved, we go from a half a day to a full day.
Right.
So I'm trying to touch 100 prisons. Ain't no trying to. I'm going to touch 100 prisons 2023 to do it, and it's nothing. Either I advise people to jump in, or just sit back and watch. But 100 correctional institution workshop is going down. We're going in there changing lives, impacting lives, and then when they get out, you still getting this mentor. You get me and those that are part of it as mentors.
Absolutely.
And everybody that's in there are formerly incarcerated. So now you seeing the results of what we're going in there talking about. You know, from people that been in your shoes. You know what I'm saying, and more. So yeah, it's most definitely going to be a big thing.
A big thing. Absolutely.
I got our final question. I asked everybody to come on this podcast this question. It's always the last questions that I ask. If you had one word to describe your journey, what would that one word be and why?
Wow. Determination.
And why determination?
Determination not to give up mentally, spiritually, physically. There's so many times where you may see individuals that will give up and will accept defeat because they made a mistake in their life, or because they thought they did something wrong, or they failed as an individual. But you got to have that determined mindset. You got to have that determined, willpower,
right,
to succeed. You got to have that determined willpower to say, listen, if that ball go in the air, I'm going to go get it. I don't care what leg I may break trying to jump to try to go get it, but I'm determined to not let myself down. Not just individuals, but let myself down. Because you have to remember, the same amount of people that you can help is the same amount of people that you can hurt.
Exactly.
And that's predicated upon your actions. So you have to be determined, no matter what. No matter if all things fail, you're still going to pick your stuff up and get back up again.
There you have it. Determination. One word, determination. Mr. Hudson, I can thank you for sharing your journey and your story and the lessons that you provided today on the reentry journey. You're part of the family. Thank you for joining the reentry support group, posting the content that you post. For those who want to join the reentry support group, feel free to join us on Facebook. Just type in reentry support group and make sure you all go get the book.
Yeah.
Let them know about the book one more time.
Yeah, so it's Keenan Hudson, The Unspoken Truth and Life Story of Keenan Hudson. So again, it's on Amazon Kindle right now. But like I said, the actual physical book is going to come out January 16th. But again, the Ranch Reader campaign is still going on. So if y'all can go check it out on Amazon Kindle, that's cool. But like I said, I'm going to be pushing this book January 16th. And then it's going to be more. It's going to keep you updated on things. You can actually go to my website, KeenanHudson.com. And it actually puts you through the funnel and everything. So you drop your email and everything, and we'll be sure to keep you posted with everything. Really appreciate this. Thank you for having me, Mr. Sims.
All right. Thank you for being a guest. And once again, this is the Reentry Journey, where we highlight the journeys and success of those who get out of prison and dedicated themselves into turning their lives around, and not just turning their lives around, but also giving back and putting in work and setting the path and setting the footprints and the blueprints for those to follow. I am your host, Kardell Sims. And until next time, y'all know my saying, now that's gang. This is gang. That's Reentry Journey, man. Y'all have a great one.
600,000 prisoners already out of prison every year. And all we talk about is the recidivism rate, highlighting failures. But this is a new time now. It's time to celebrate. Time to admire. Time to honor those who got out of prison and never looked back. Doing something with themselves and their lives while giving back.